We're here to talk about bread, lettuce, cheese, dead presidents, green.
It's just money, man. It's just money.
I have a little game to entertain us for a little bit, and it's going to be a trivia game.
The Sumerians.
Who was the only woman to ever had her portrait on U.S. currency?
Susan B. Anthony?
What's your guess?
Susan B. Anthony? Oh, gosh.
It's Martha Washington.
It was Martha. We got it.
Yes.
Could have been our first queen.
Question number 2. What percentage are $1 bills of all bills printed?
95.
I was actually going to say 97, and without cheating, I stuck with my just instinctual answer.
Jack wins. The answer is 45.
No,
actually.
it's not. It's all the Benjamins.
Question number 3. How did the word buck become to mean $1?
Like you were always shooting for a $10. I'm going to go real literal here.
A hunting term.
I feel like it has to do with the gold rush.
A buck referred to a deerskin or buckskin,
Nice.
which was commonly used as money. So I'll give that to you, Jared.
Nice, Jared.
So question number 4. What is the average credit card debt for Americans?
My guess is $19,000.
All right, so I'm going to use
20,000?
Jack. I'm not allowed to use a calculator. What's 90 billion divided by 100 million?
Can't use your opponent's brain.
You said I couldn't use it. All right, so now I'm going with 9,000.
So 5,700. So who's actually
Nice.
closer?
Jared.
Yeah. Question number 5. Who was the first U.S. billionaire? Come on.
Was it Gates?
Carnegie.
So I would say Jack is closer. It was Henry Ford.
Is he actually a
That's
billionaire?
nominal dollars. Yeah, nominal dollars.
How much would a stack of dollar bills a mile high be worth?
$1 billion.
$4 million.
Jack wins that one, which ties up the game at $14.5 million. Tiebreaker.
Okay.
What was the name of the eagle, which is now on the U.S. silver dollar? It was an actual eagle, and he had a name. A, George. B, Birdie. 3, Peter. Or 4, Bartholomew.
You first.
No, I'm actually going with Birdie.
All right, I'll go with Bartholomew.
Peter. Peter was his
Peter,
name.
of course.
His name was Peter.
So really, it's just Money Live. Thanks for being here. Again, I'm Jared. This is Jack, and we like to answer people's questions about money. We had a question that came in. Will they get taxed on the stimulus check they just received? And actually, it's a refundable tax credit, which translates to mean you will not be taxed on it, and you don't have to claim it as income. And so their next question was actually in response to our tip. One of our tips we gave was, hey, if you don't need this money, you could actually give it away. And there's some good charities and stuff out there. I did have somebody else suggest, hey, if you're going to give it away, you can also benefit. So I know like Southwest right now, you can 10 times the points for purchase if you donate to a charity. So you might as well get like a free flight out of the donation. And then also the other person asked, could they get a tax deduction right off?
So any charitable contribution to a qualified charity would be eligible for a tax deduction. Whether or not you receive a benefit, as in an actual reduction in your taxes, is another story. Since the 2017 Tax and Jobs Act, the standard deduction has been raised so high that most people are taking the standard deduction and no longer itemizing. So for a couple, the standard deduction is about $24,000. So unless your local and state taxes, mortgage interest deduction, and charitable deductions exceed altogether $24,000, you will probably be taking the standard deduction, not the itemized version, and therefore won't actually have a tax reduction
benefit.
Yeah.
So I always just tell people, if you look at your last year's tax return and you had a very similar year and you had a standard deduction, then unless you're making some serious contributions or had a lot of change, you probably won't qualify for a deduction, or if you're really close to the line. So that's the easiest way to tell, kind of napkin math, is am I already using standard deduction? If not, you're itemizing and you're likely to itemize again. It's a great way to get a tax deduction. So as far as the next question I got so far lined up is, I was sent a question from somebody who was trying to make use of this time they have and actually game streaming.
What's game streaming?
Dad.
I'm wearing a sports coat. I don't know what that is.
I play golf.
Yeah, that's right. I play golf.
I went to school for too long.
That's right.
So they are streaming, I'm assuming maybe on Twitch or something, and they said, hey, I'm actually converting it into revenue.
So like other people watch them play a video game
And then
on some service that
Yeah.
will give them money for it.
So they said, should I start a business? At what point do I have to start worrying about write-offs and stuff? I should probably start an LLC. I said, honestly, I wouldn't really worry about it. If you're doing anything, you could always just get insurance, but you don't need to do anything to become a company. You are a sole prop. If you're actually receiving revenue, and you can then start writing that off back. If you're using your phone or you buy a webcam or your computer to do this, you can use those expenses to offset your gains. And you can do all of that as a sole prop.
Offset your income.
Yes. Offset the income from the streaming. And so then I said, hey, if you're concerned, like you're actually giving advice or something, like you can always get an insurance policy. But the idea of an LLC seemed a bit extreme. And I just said, of course, if you feel like you need a limited liability kind of cover, then you could. And it's very easy to get one.
Sure.
It just didn't really seem like they should just run out and get an LLC and worry about being an S corp or anything. And I always get this question: when should I be an S corp? Should I be an S corp? And I just tell people, hey, if you can't have over $50,000 in annual revenue in a company, don't even think about being an S corp. So we'll just throw that question out.
First off, you do need to claim the income, particularly if it's over $600 a year.
First question I asked: are you going to get 1099? Does
Sure.
anybody know you're
Yeah,
getting paid?
right.
Because otherwise, don't worry about it unless.
But even up until that point, you could probably argue that it's a hobby. But if it's regular income, then make sure that you're filing taxes. He's right. There's no reason for tax reasons you need an LLC. For limited liability reasons, until you see that you're in your own life that you have a regular pattern, so it's going to become more like a business for you if you continue doing it after 3 or 4 months, that's probably the time to evaluate that. And
you also have to acquire enough assets that you're worried about people coming after your own stuff.
yeah, sometimes it can be nice just to have that stuff figured out on the front end. So the commitment that you have to it is sometimes more important, because these days it really is pretty easy to register an LLC.
Yes.
If you want to, but I would definitely give it some amount of months to see if it actually sticks, and then go from there.
Yeah. And the main thing is tracking your expenses. So if you run to Micro Center and buy something and go home, you can track your mileage, your cell phone bill if you're using it regularly, if you pay for some sort of accounting software. So I always tell people, you can actually very easily in a small business scenario, just getting started, actually operate in a loss and take a loss on your tax return and pay less taxes from your regular job's income. Now there's limits to all that. And so, yeah, start trying to operate in a loss from the get-go.
Okay, from Madison. What kind of account / fund, etc., should we be putting money into for Tucker?
That's their
Son. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I actually have a nuanced answer to that. 529 is tax advantaged for future education savings. So what that means is you invest in it, and like an IRA, you don't pay taxes as the money grows. And then if it's used for eventually educational expenses, either in high school, college, or graduate school, you don't pay taxes on any of the gains in the fund.
And I'm going to chime in real quick. Additionally, on the 529, they've begun, and I think there'll be more of this in the future, expanding, because can't you use it for even like if you go to private K, like high school now? So they keep expanding it.
Right.
So assuming this is a young child now or baby, I think that's gonna, the more things that happen like this, like right now they're expanding what the HSA can do. I think you'll be able to use it in more ways going forward. So it's a great account in that sense. And also the other thing about 529s are you can very quickly change who the benefit is. So you could have like a nephew or niece that gets to college and
Or another kid.
Yeah, or another kid, and just say like, yeah, I'm going to give you 1,000 or 2,000 or more money ended up in this account. So I'm going to use it for both kids now.
I do add a little bit of nuance to that, because I think that parents are very, very expensive. And so saving now helps a lot. But not all kids go to college, and not all kids are going to go to college. So I do think there's some merit in considering just a Universal Transfer to Minors Act account, which is not tax advantaged, but the money can be used for anything other than education funds. And so if you imagine that you get a 19 or a 20-year-old who isn't going to go to college and they just want to work, maybe at some point early in their career, they want to start a business. And if they have the ability, because you put some capital aside for them to be able to do that, I think that there's merit to that. So just as a rule of thumb, the first $100 a month should go to a 529 plan. And then after you have done that, consider, do we want to continue funding the 529 because we just want it for college? Or should we put it into another account so that there's some flexibility when we see what this kid is and what he's going to do, and so on and so forth. So that's how I.
Is there flexibility on that second account where I actually totally forgot about that account. Where can it change who it goes to, or is it kind of more of a set in stone account?
No, that'll be their account.
You see, I like it when you can use it as leverage against your child. Like, if you don't listen, I'm going to take your 529 money and give it to this child or your niece or your nemesis neighbor, because you can use anybody.
Jared's actually half grandmother, and so that's where that comes from.
Yes, there's a question. Question is, with all this uncertainty you hear people talking about, when people are uncertain, they go to gold. What are your thoughts on gold or silver? Or
the gold/silver question? I mean, the answers can be multifaceted. If you buy just because of uncertainty, you need to be prepared that the price of gold does fluctuate both up and down. That said, gold has held a serious value for pretty much all of time and has appreciated in value for the last 100 years since the New Deal, a lot.
New Deal being when the dollar was no longer backed.
No, they devalued U.S. currency during the New Deal, which actually, because it used to trade at a fixed rate.
Okay.
Until Nixon closed the gold window in the 70s. But so gold will go up 4,000% at times, and it will come back down several 100% at times. Having a percentage of a portfolio in gold does make a lot of sense, particularly at a time when a lot of fiat money is being printed. And so in theory, the value of dollars is going down. I mean, value of dollars is almost always going down because of inflation. But that's a good reason to have gold. Don't go crazy with it. Make sure that you understand going into it, I'm okay with this thing going down in price because I believe it gives me. That said, that I would have some gold. Silver will tend to be a little bit more volatile. Silver, and right now don't know for sure, be a decent time to buy silver because the gold-silver ratio is out towards its historical extremes.
Also, silver, interesting enough, I heard, is likely it's used heavily in solar panels.
It's used in a lot of stuff. It's actually part of the reason that it's a little more volatile is because it's usually viewed by the market more as an industrial metal as much as a safe haven, whereas gold is basically just a safe haven. And so if you have contracting economic activity, sometimes the demand for silver goes down because not as many things are being produced that contain silver.
Mm-hmm. I'm more just thinking, I'm a big solar future. I think that will be very, very big in the future. So when silver's so low, and it's kind of being viewed as a safe haven. And I think even this,
there might be utility in the future.
I think this is actually creating even more feeling of independent need, like in control over our own lives. And what better way than being able to provide your own power and having solar?
Yeah.
I actually thought to myself, this would have been a great time to have solar.
Sure.
I mean, I would have felt better. I would have felt more secure.
Sure.
By the way, I started a solar company. I really like silver right now. I've never understood gold, to be honest. What about all the people who say you need to own the actual metal?
Yeah, it's kind of like the Tesla and no Tesla crew. There are religious followings basically on whether or not you need to hold physical gold. If you're really concerned about society breaking down and you would like to have it physically in your possession because you believe at some point it will give you something to bargain with, then having a couple of ounces of coins makes some sense. If for no other reason, just to make you feel better. And then on the paper gold side of things, a lot of those trusts are actually is that there are these trusts set up. The trusts own a bunch of physical gold, and then you can go and buy shares basically of that company that owns all the gold.
So then you own a percentage of that gold.
Sure. There are there are several different options out there. If you do a little bit of research, you can find ones that maybe you'll feel more secure about. A lot of people will say, just get GLD. There's no problems with it, whatever. You don't need to worry about any custody issues or all this other stuff. If you're not satisfied with that, I know the Sprott Gold Trust is a finite amount of shares, a finite amount of gold, so it could make someone feel better. So if you just do a little bit of research to decide which financial asset that has to do with gold I want to have, you'll see that different ones have slightly different makeups and can make you feel a little more secure.
And yeah, we have one other question. Do you have a budget format that you recommend? From David Stafis.
Well, we kind of know from past episodes, if you've seen, when it comes to budgeting, I actually really like to start with how much you want to save as a target. Once you backwards do your math from there, sometimes you find out you can't do it, and then you can adjust it from there. There's the I want to save and get ahead and kind of go there. And then there's like, I'm budgeting because there's just not enough and I have to decide, down to every penny. So my answer definitely starts with the idea of saving. And I like how I'm talking with my hands like that. It's like for my own visual purposes, I'm just catching myself do it and I forget I'm on camera. So if you are starting with how much you want to save. So for me, I start there and then it doesn't really matter how you get there, as long as you get there. If you spent too much on entertainment or not, the next level of how much you want to save is you derive how much you want to save based on your other goals. So if I say I want to, it's very important to me that I don't work past the age of 60, right? I can start making, if I get advanced, I can start making a budget for when I'm 60, then figure out how much there, and then just trust and allow that to happen over time. So that's kind of taking it even farther. But that's kind of
yeah, and I think that consistent with what he's saying, most things boil down to values for me, and I think that if people examine their own budgets to see how they reflect their values, they can actually have better outcomes. Because there's one thing to set a budget, and there's another one to sort of to keep with it, and realizing that people have very different financial circumstances. The government, through the not the Bureau of Economic Analysis, maybe the Consumer Protection Bureau, I think, puts out a recommended budget. So it has the rules, right? Your housing shouldn't take up more than 30% of your budget.
Yep.
Food should be a certain, so on and so forth. If you look at those and then compare it to what you're currently spending, and then say to yourself, am I outside of these recommendations for a good reason? Right? Is there a reason that I'm actually at 40% on housing, and it's because I want my kids to be in a certain school district, so otherwise I probably would live over here, but it's important for me to be over here, so I'm willing to sacrifice these other things to do that.
And then have you sacrifice?
Yeah.
Or did you just sacrifice savings and that's a problem?
Yeah, and that certainly can be a problem.
And maybe that fits your values.
But give yourself active. So just use, you can Google a budget format to get the percentages, and then look at where you fall as against those and make sure you're being intentional and it reflects your values, the intentions of the decisions you make to go either over or under certain percentage recommendations.
A really good story, kind of short. I wouldn't say we were fighting. My wife and I haven't tended to, even when we had very little and like every penny was counting, we tended to do fairly well. But we were discussing our food. We felt bad about how much money we were spending going out to eat. And so what we did was we added up all the food we spent going out to eat and then added up our groceries. And then we got the total, and then we Googled how much does the average family of two spend on food. And either way, the total was the same always. Like you shouldn't spend just what you did. I think we actually went to that website, and it was like, for us, I think it was like a range of 600, or I think it was 800 to 1,000 even was the range.
That's about right.
But we were coming in at 670, going out to eat a lot. So we were feeling all bad and thinking we needed to cut back, and we realized we should look elsewhere. We were doing really well here. And we could come back to this if we wanted to sacrifice more, but we enjoyed it. Yeah. We split meals when we went out to eat. We never got drinks and we never got dessert. didn't get an appetizer, you could go a long ways. So
I think I wanted to add to just as where values matter as far as budgeting and long-term planning. A friend of mine shared this story with me a few years ago, and I found it so inspiring, and I try to share it as I can. But that friend's parents, while they were growing up, chose for several years to live in like a double wide trailer. And they were both working, had decent jobs, but they recognized at that time that the trajectory, I think they were both teachers, so it was steady pay, but it wasn't ever going to be a tremendous amount of pay. And they recognized that they wanted their kid to have a certain college education. And they wanted to be prepared to do that. And so they chose to live, it's maybe $20,000 probably back then, $15,000, $20,000 for one of those double wides. So they chose to have a housing expense that was 40%, 50%, 60% less than what they would just roll into naturally. Everything, right? Cheaper. So, and all of that money could go to excess savings because they were intentional about a certain value they had. And I remember hearing that story and just thinking, like, I was very by that story, and I think it really illustrates how people should allow themselves to think. It doesn't necessarily mean you come to different conclusions, but you should definitely allow yourself to think outside of the box to be able to accomplish what might be your most important financial goals for the future.
Yeah. And for platform, I use Quicken. I've just had it forever. It's cheap enough for the subscription that it's part of my budget. And I like being able to go back and look at the data and make decisions. For instance, when I was looking at solar, I was actually literally pulled up how much I had spent on electricity for a decade, and was doing the math, and ended up holding off for now. And we'll probably have to coincide with having an electric vehicle to really make sense of it.
So this one is more of a trying to understand. I don't understand, so you guys will have to help me out a little bit. A POD account?
Mm-hmm.
Payroll
To
on
the debt. Yeah. It's just like at your
okay.
bank, when you pick a beneficiary on your checking account,
okay.
that's a POD.
So, or what if somebody had an account like that when they were kids? Probably like maybe they were an actor or something as a kid, did some of that, and there was money in there. Children who make money, and then probably when they were older, they were supposed to get it. Like, how about, do you guys know?
Those are two different things.
So that'd be like a custodial account.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The custodial account, whoever the majority, the older person is, has some fiduciary responsibility to the minor whose money it is.
They have to take care of the money.
They have to take care of the money. They have a legal obligation to do that.
Okay.
A POD is a payable on debt, which would be, it's just a way to inherit.
Oh, okay.
So like if there's a bank account and someone passes away, but they have payable on death on the account,
Mhm.
that means at that moment that they died, the money becomes the person who was payable on death to.
I'm going to go dark in the dark here, and I'm going to say that maybe a child inherited as a POD, somebody else died, the child inherited the money, and they're asked what to do. Does that maybe line up with the way the question is worded?
Not exactly.
We'll answer that either way. So that's now if you are the person that is, you're the father, the mother, the caretaker of the child, like Jack was saying, you actually have a responsibility to take care of this account, and you can be held accountable for taking.
So like maybe a great aunt of this child passes away and leaves them money.
Mm-hmm.
And the parent, because the child isn't old enough to just take the money because they're a minor.
Mm-hmm.
So then the parent, whoever the custodian is of the child, has a responsibility. Now, that means that the parent could spend the money if they were saying that they were spending the money towards the benefit of the child.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that they necessarily have to preserve it,
Okay.
but they do have some obligation.
To justify that it was being spent for the benefit of the child.
Or to preserve it.
Or to preserve it.
Yeah.
And a third thumbs up came in there, so we might have hit that question.
Okay, good. I think.
Well, to wrap up, I'd love to just quickly touch on the economy, just real fast, real light, because I kind of quit watching all the coronavirus task force stuff. It felt like Trump was doing a lot of campaigning and information was coming farther apart. But there is the new PPP loan up in the running where they're looking at putting more money out there for small businesses. So that is perked my attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I've started pursuing things like that even for myself and my own businesses, and encouraging other people I know who have businesses. I got a question, and I get on a regular basis, I'll just get random text saying, what are you thinking now? Is this a good time? Are you thinking, have you gotten in at all? And a lot of times I said, I don't really know that answer. And
Gotten into investments?
yeah, like, is this like a good time to buy? And so here's the answer I gave today. I said, it feels like the fog of war. Like I'm still standing. I was too scared to maybe move too far, and I'm starting to see a little farther, and I can see other people, but I still have no idea what's going to happen. So I'm really cautious, hunkered in, and just slowly trudging forward. That was my answer today. I had a very different answer before, but a lot of people ask that question. This is It's Just Money. It's not a finance podcast. It's people in their relationships with money podcast. I do wonder about this, and I'm just curious if you would like to share anything on that. That's my question for the show.
What's going on with the economy? Is that the question?
Just should people feel like it's like, hey, this right now, all that you can see from the outside is it went down really low, and then
Okay, well, that's the stock market, which is not the same thing as the economy.
This is true. I'm focusing on people who
Though
are
the
looking-
economy did go down.
Yes. I'm focused on people who are looking at investing in the stock market.
This is not investment advice because I'm not allowed to give investment advice in this format. That said, general guidance to consider. Investing from this point forward, you need to be prepared to lose at least 50% of your capital. You just do. There are a tremendous amount of risks. This is literally something that no one has ever been through before. We've never shut down the world economy like this. That I feel comfortable saying without worrying about my compliance hat. Like, it's just never happened.
Yeah.
And so no one's really quite sure how it's going to come back online. And there's been a lot of evidence the last 6 weeks about the fact that the coronavirus portion of things has in many ways turned out better than people expected, or is starting to show things aren't as bad as projections, probably because we flattened the curve, right?
Yeah.
And that's, buoyed along with Fed and government intervention. But there are tremendous risks to trying to bring everything back online to the same degree that it was.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a bit, in my view, it's going to be a bit of a long road. And that long road with uncertainty probably means volatility, because uncertainty usually translates to volatility within stock markets. So there are good companies to buy. There are good investments to make, but you need to be prepared to lose a significant and be willing to either sit on it, take the loss, whatever you're going to do. But you have to be prepared for that before you invest.
Yeah, you need to be prepared emotionally for sure.
And practically.
It's a tough time. Hang in there. Keep watching. We'll try to answer your questions. If you have any more questions, send them in for future shows. Jack, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
If you're watching this, even though it may not be live and it's a replay, you can still send in your questions and we'll try to answer.
Thank you for listening or watching It's Just Money. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If so, please subscribe so you don't miss out.
Also, leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, please comment below.
But remember, it's just money.